Hello world, it's Dave again. Got another episode of Teaching English in Japan, Life in Japan, that kind of thing. And today was an interesting day. It was we're coming up basically on the changing of the guard, I guess you could call it, where the grade 3s, or sennensei, whatever you want to call them, those guys move on and go to their high schools, and the second graders move up and everything like that. And as per the title of this, I just wanted to talk about something that I found really interesting, and it's something I suppose I've felt the entire time that I'm here, regardless of my efforts. And I guess it's just one of these things, I guess, that I think a lot of people would feel if they came here. And it really just depends on how you deal with it. And it's the idea of being on the outside, where it just struck me today, at every single one of these ceremonies that I go to, there's a massive portion of it where I don't really have a great sense of what's going on. There's so many speeches and different things that happen that I can definitely grasp some of the emotion behind the things. I know the mood of what's occurring, but it is a singularly interesting and different kind of experience to be in a place where you're observing and you don't understand, and it's something that I guess I wanted to talk about it because it can be a potentially alienating thing. It can be a thing that might discourage you. But like I'm talking about, that's sort of a matter of perspective, because I think you have two things that can happen when you're in this kind of situation. Yes, you can be, because you lack understanding, you might judge a situation poorly to understand. But I think when you are ultimately an outsider, when that is kind of like the very definition of what you are, you're also, if careful with the way in which you deal with it, you're granted a great deal of insight and objectivity. There's a lot that you won't understand, but there's a lot as an absolute pure observer that you will understand. And I've noticed that more and more and more of my time spent here, and I really, really enjoy it. I guess it's just you stop focusing on the minutia, on all the little details, because you can't focus on them, and instead you look at kind of the greater things that are apparent to you, just like the emotion and body language of everybody, because you kind of resort back to these things when you don't have much else to go on. And it's really, really interesting. Like I said, it sort of grants you a hyper level of objectivity, and I really enjoyed that, because I felt like there's so much that goes on that is unsaid, or doesn't, or is said, but I don't know that it's being said, and how you can still understand so much regardless of that fact if you if you focus, like I say, on body language, on the emotion of the people around you, and it can grant you a great deal of insight. And like I said, I kind of wanted to make this movie because the other side of that, if you don't take this kind of perspective, if you don't try and view this kind of thing in this way, that it really can become alienating if you focus on everything that you don't understand as opposed to these other things that you might be able to perceive in it. You take what is kind of obviously the truth, that you are an outsider, and then you turn it into a really negative thing as opposed to see it for the positives that you might draw out from it. It's something we probably experience a lot when we're younger. We feel like outsiders and stuff like that, and then we almost grow out of it, as you become an adult and you get a circle of friends and everything. And it's good to come back to it when you're older. It can remind you of other things as well, just being truly made an outsider again. You could probably appreciate what that is if you were to return to your own culture and you see somebody struggling. It might be a reminder to show a little more patience for people. I guess a perfect example might be just like straight up, if you're intolerant, or not intolerant, but if you feel impatient with somebody who's in your country and they're struggling with your language, just when you've done something like this, or if you can do this, you could be this open-minded without going through this, but it certainly helps. Just realize if somebody's trying how difficult that experience is, and when we have the situation reversed, it's so easy to forget that because our perspective is limited to the fact that we're very comfortable within the group because we're a part of the group, and it's very easy to grow impatient and develop a prejudice. And so something that might immediately or at once seem alienating when you arrive can be, I suppose you might say, just a greater life lesson. When you're on the outside and looking in, it grants you a great deal of perspective if you allow yourself to be objective as opposed to miserable. Because there's a lot of the times it's tempting to do that. Like I say, I'm kind of harping on that point because you do kind of feel a sort of loneliness, but taken into perspective, taking a step back, that's a really good thing to feel in many ways. And so that was just kind of my thoughts today on that. And it was a really cool ceremony for the things that I can understand. I always talk about language, and a universal language is music. And there was certainly a little bit of that today. There, for example, I love it. This is something that ran through my head as well. You know, as you're getting older, I'm always trying to do things where each day is absolutely new. You know, that I hate the idea of being too much in a routine where you wake up and it feels like the same day over and over and over again. And the more comfortable we are, the easier it is for these things to happen to us. It's a little easier when you go over to another country and you're out of your element and everything. But even then, things grow familiar. And so I'm trying to do other things, whether, you know, it's reading a new book or working on some creative project, something like that, making it feel like life really is new and interesting and invigorating. And I had one of those moments today, you could call it almost like unassisted, where it wasn't something that I so actively tried to do, but just in watching the performance today. They had this really cool performance, which I've never seen before. I'd never even really thought of. It was genuinely new, where they had this series of bells, all these like little individual, you know, like you might call for service, and all of them had a different tone to them. And it was really, really interesting. You had about 6 or 7 kids up there, and they all have different bells in their hand, and you had one person on a xylophone. And they were creating this melody between all of them. You know, one guy would ring and be like, ding, 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 ding. And they played this whole little performance. And that was really, really cool. Definitely put a smile on my face to watch that and have it be entirely unique. So really cool. And a few thoughts. Just, you know, standing, watching, listening to things I don't understand. And that's like, I know I could always be trying to learn the language better. You know, somebody could criticize me and say, well, you're so much more an outsider because you haven't learned the language. But as much as that's true, it's not for lack of trying. I could have always tried more, but I am trying to learn the language as much. Well, you could always learn more. So it's difficult to say as much as I could. I could be spending more hours each day doing it, but I am trying to. It's not as though that's not there. I think it is inescapable when you do something like this to experience some of, if not a significant degree of what I'm talking about, which is that kind of alienation. All right, that's it. My little chat about their going away ceremony, my thoughts on kind of viewing things objectively, being on the outside. More movies to come. If you like this, of course, share it, subscribe to the channel. I got more movies and thoughts about this whole experience over here in Japan. If you got any questions about getting the job or anything like that, you know, write me. I've tried to help a few people so far who've done so. So yeah, like, subscribe, share, and like I like to say, until we meet again next time, world, thanks for tripping with Dave. Ciao for now. Peace.